welcome everybody to our virtual open house. It's great to see you here. My name is Cheryl Ehrman. I'm the Don Beal Dean of the Davidson College of Engineering at San Jose State. I'm actually in my office today, and I'm excited to introduce Associate Dean Nicole Okamoto. She is our Associate Dean who oversees undergraduate student programs and student success. So what I can do is I can just give a little bit of information about our college, and then we just want to open it up to questions. And we may have another associate dean for graduate programs joining us shortly. We'll see. We at the Davidson College of Engineering, we have 26 academic programs. So we have 13 bachelor's degrees in different fields of engineering, as well as aviation and engineering technology. And then we have 13 graduate programs as well. We have programs across all the fields of engineering you can imagine, except maybe one big field. I will say that we do not have agricultural engineering. We are an urban campus in downtown San Jose, but if you're interested in the intersection of technology and agriculture, we do actually have faculty who are working on projects in that area. We are the second largest college of engineering in the whole state of California. We're really proud of that. We provide more talent to Silicon Valley than any other institution, which as Silicon Valley's public university, that's not such a huge surprise. Things that I think set our programs apart are, if we think about the hands-on activities that are available to students. So right now we've got 2/3 of our classes roughly are either in person or hybrid modes. So students are coming to class at least for part of the class contact hours and doing laboratories in person and building projects in person. And then come spring, we'll have an even greater fraction. And then depending on what semester you're looking to join, hopefully you'll be able to do as much hands-on as you want to. We have a really wonderful mix of faculty. So our faculty are kind of two types. One type of faculty is our regular tenure line faculty. So these are people who are full-time faculty, and they are scholar teachers. So they do some research and they do some teaching, and they also do service to students in the university, and that's what a faculty member does. And then we have lecturer faculty. And so our lecturer faculty, we have a few that are full-time, and so they do all teaching. And then we also have some lecturer faculty that might only teach one class per year or a couple classes per semester. And they're usually coming from industry or maybe even recently retired from industry to teach our classes. And so our graduates are known in the Valley for being ready to work. And I think part of that is that all of our faculty really try to bring a real world perspective into our classes. Another thing our students are known for is that they're actually wonderful graduate students. And so when our students go on to do research in going on to graduate programs, either our own master's programs to get an advanced degree there or going on for doctorate programs, they're the ones, they go, we don't have a PhD program yet. So if you want to get a PhD and you want to stay local, we have many students at Stanford and at Berkeley, and then a little further away at Davis and UC Merced and UC Santa Cruz, or even people all the way in other states going on to their doctorates. And our students are also known for really being ready to attack problems they've never seen before. Part of the marker of our students is that, we're an urban campus. We have many commuter students. That's actually the majority of our students. We do have residential students as well. But our students are just used to solving the problems around them in their daily lives. And when we do engineering, it's just we learn how to apply those skills you already have to engineering problems with a heavy emphasis on our quantitative reasoning approaches and tools. So in any case, it's coming here to get your engineering degree, whether it's an undergraduate degree or a graduate degree, gives you really great preparation for what you want to do next. So I want to introduce another Associate Dean. So we have Associate Dean Xiao Su on this call, and Associate Dean Su is our Associate Dean for Graduate Studies and Research. So I think at this point, we would just love to see if you have any questions, and then we'll do our best to answer them. If you don't have questions, we could ask you questions. And you can also put a question in the chat if you're feeling like you don't want to come off mute. We
could
want to
say,
know. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Associate Dean Okamoto.
I could say a little bit about the transfer process. If you're looking at coming for spring, I know most people who come to fall open house are starting in spring, which is why it's a little smaller group. I may be interested in how that transfer process works. How do you get your courses approved? You will have an orientation session if you're coming for spring. And as part of that orientation, you meet with a major advisor. So you can take a look at, I took these courses at Mission College, for instance. What do they count for at San Jose State? Let's say I took a course that's not officially articulated. How did I get that approved for something at San Jose State? Like I took a different programming class and it's not listed. And so everyone will be able to meet with a major advisor during that time, and they go over that process in detail. And we have a really smooth transfer process from community colleges. And if any students are coming from out of state, there's a process we can talk about how to get out of state courses or say private school courses approved as well for the various San Jose State courses. Yeah, as Dean noted, half of our grads come from transfer students, and so really familiar with working with students on that process.
Yeah, I will also say that companies, this is again another reason why students successfully translate well into the workforce. So if you're a transfer student, you're already, by the time you get here, we're your second major transition. And so your next major transition might be to a company or graduate school, but you've already done it twice at least. And so in that case, again, our students do this really well on the other side. We want to know what programs you're interested in. So maybe if you want to put that in the chat, we could maybe give some information about those specific programs. Oh, that's a good question for Associate Dean Okamoto. 12th grade grades.
For I am not quite sure about that. So the GPA calculation, while your acceptances are in spring, so it'd be based on fall grades only. And so your spring grades aren't going to factor into the acceptance.
Actually, your fall grades don't factor it in at all. I have a 12th grader at home. She just hit the button, so her admission will be based on a 10th and 11th grade grades.
Yeah, I suppose with applications already due.
Yeah. So if you are going to be a fall admit.
Yeah, I had that same question because my 12th grade, my senior is also working on the CSU Apply app now. Yeah. So but some other schools do count the first semester of your senior semester grades. Depends. Yeah. I'm not sure about. Yeah.
Ours. So the second part of the question here, do you look at courses taken for engineering? For freshman admissions, right now there's no more test scores that are used for admission, so it's all GPA. But for engineering, there's an extra weight given to the GPA of your math courses. So things like physics or chemistry actually just factor into the overall GPA, but it's the math course GPA in particular that gets extra weight.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and put the Impaction link in the chat. And so you can see that we do have like Associate Dean Okamoto mentioned, we do have the GPA weighting, and you can see we do admit by program, and so you can see the differences between programs as you go in. And then there's also some information about the supplemental application required for transfer applications.
Right now, or at least in previous years, computer, software, and mechanical engineering required higher GPAs to get in than other programs, just depending on the number of applications that we've received.
Yeah. So the other question about acceptance ratio. So it really depends on the program. And so it'll be competitive to get into the more impacted programs if you're coming in as a transfer or you're coming in as a high school student, regardless.
I can look that up really fast. It's kind of overall, give you an idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think an important thing to keep in mind is that there's more than one pathway to the same type of career. So, for example, if people are interested in software engineering, there's so many more people I think that would become great software engineers than we can admit into the program, frankly. But if you look at majors like industrial and systems engineering, you can see in a program like that, which does actually have more space to admit students, and it's a little easier to get into, they have a lot of great classes in programming. And so you can get experience programming, which helps to prepare you for software engineering. And then you also have the industrial systems and engineering background. And so there are ways to gain the experience you need. And that especially if you also do software engineering type projects as you're working your way through the curriculum.
Yeah, there's a way to specify second choice major. In your app, and some majors do consider second major choices as well. Yeah, for the question on the specific GPA, it's because university does convert that to the eligibility index points. So it's kind of hard to say what should be a high school GPA, because we do count the mass GPA, weight that a little differently from others, right? And so the published indexes are eligibility index score.
So I was looking at some numbers for fall 2021 for the College of Engineering as a whole. The admit rate for freshmen was 88%. For transfer students, it was 81%, and it varied quite a bit with major. So some programs like engineering technology, it's very high, whereas go to software engineering, it's going to be a little bit lower.
All right, so far I see people may be interested in electrical engineering or mechanical engineering. Are there other majors that people are interested in? One thing we can share out that I think is pretty exciting is we have a Mechatronics program, and I think we've got the official minor up now. And this is a way to be able to take courses to help learn about robotics and automation. And I'll ask Associate Dean Okamoto to talk a little bit about that because she's very familiar with this.
Sure. The new robotics minor is it's multidisciplinary, and it was developed in collaboration between mechanical, computer, and electrical engineering. And so students can take courses in multiple areas. And it depends, if you come in as a mechanical engineering major, then you may want to take more courses in computer engineering as part of that minor to strengthen that area. Whereas someone's in computer engineering, they may be taking more mechanical engineering courses for that minor to get that hardware focus. And so there's a multiple departments who have emphasis in these areas. Industrial and systems engineering also brings in a really good perspective to that particular minor. In terms of backgrounds, we should know answers to pretty specific questions in certain minors. Dr. Sue comes out of computer engineering department. I came out of mechanical engineering. And Dr. Ehrman, she joined us as dean from a different school, but she's a background in chemical engineering.
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand the question here. Electrical engineering is the first major. What is next major second choice? Maybe you could elaborate on your question. Are you saying you're looking for an alternative major if you're not accepted into electrical engineering?
One possibility is engineering technology. They have two focus areas. One's in manufacturing, but for someone interested in electrical engineering, focus in computer networking and systems management could be a backup option. The difference between the engineering technology and the engineering majors, engineering technology tends to be more focused on direct applications. And so students won't take quite as much of the intensive, math and physics courses compared to an engineering major. It really depends what you're interested in. We have some majors that are less impacted so that they're easier to get into because they just aren't as well known. Dr. Ehrman had mentioned industrial and systems engineering, which is a very highly ranked program, but they just aren't quite as large because it's not quite as well known what an industrial and systems engineer does compared to, say, an electrical engineer or a mechanical engineer. Xiao, do you want to take the question about CS?
So yeah, other schools have BS in computer science. In Southeast State, we also have a BS in computer science and a BS in software engineering. And software engineering will give you more practical hands-on training and in developing large complex systems. So you look at having more project design sessions, requirements in your degree, and the computer science curriculum require more on teach you how to develop code in a more efficient way, so with more theoretical underpinnings, right? So if you look at CS and the software engineering from a more theoretical to hands-on spectrum, and software engineering is considered to be more on the end of hands-on, and the CS has more theoretical coverage in their requirements. Yeah.
And if you're wondering why CS doesn't show up in our open house for College of Engineering, CS is actually in the College of Science. So it's just a little bit different home within the university.
Yeah, I'm not in that area, and I have a different way of explaining it from my perspective. If you think of the code as a product, engineers, we like to design products that meet needs. So if you think of code as a product, then you might be wanting to think like a software engineer. Or if you think about the design process, we have a software development process, then that might be more thinking like a software engineer. If you're interested in the science of how to do the computing, then that may be an indication that you might want to think about CS as your choice. It's a little bit like the difference between physics and mechanical engineering. So if you want to use physics to design a product or a process, then that's more of an engineering, mechanical engineering way of approaching it. But if you really want to study the fundamentals about why things happen to really understand them better, then that might mean that physics is for you.
So there are a couple questions here about transfers, which I could, changing major, which I could pick up. For a freshman coming in, a lot of freshmen don't really know for sure what they want to do. And so the good thing is that the engineering majors, they all have some differences in the first year, but they're relatively similar. You take an intro to engineering class, there's calculus, there's physics, things like that. And you may take a little bit different programming class, but a lot of those can transfer. And so students do have some time to decide to change major. There is a process. So if you are trying to get into a very impacted major like mechanical, computer, or software, you need a little higher GPA to be approved to change major than if you're transferring into a major that's a little less impacted, such as aerospace engineering. But there are a lot of students who do change major. For transfer students, there's a question, can a student come into a less impacted major and then switch to software engineering? That's a little risky.
Up that. Yeah, that's a little risky. And yeah, I was chair for computer and software engineering for the past few years. And so yeah, if you transfer to a less impacted major and then seek to transfer to software engineering, you need to meet the same impact criteria as if you were applying for software engineering during the semester. So yeah, that's essentially it's not possible. Yeah.
Yeah, again, it gets to the question about there are many different pathways to having a career as a software engineer. Silicon Valley is a pretty flexible place, and thinking about majors that aren't as impacted, that have lots of classes involving programming, it's a great pathway. So again, industrial systems engineering, but we have coding and other programs as well.
Yeah, our industrial systems engineering students do take classes together with computer and software engineering in their programs. So they take a software engineering class together with computer engineering and the software engineering majors. And our master's program in software engineering and computer engineering also take industrial systems engineering undergraduate students. So if you, yeah, at that point, want to switch to software engineering, yeah, you're eligible to do that at that time. And we have, yeah, the software engineering graduate program has had many successful students from industrial systems undergraduate program.
Yeah, and the pathways can even be broader. So we had somebody come back and speak who was a mechanical engineering undergraduate student, and she took Mechatronics courses, which had a lot of programming. And then her first position was actually as a software engineer. And so she had to stretch a little bit to grow into that. And then she transitioned later back to a mechanical engineering position because she really loved robotics and the mechanical side of it. But she had that software engineering background that she'd actually picked up between her classes and her work experience. And that's going to serve her incredibly well over her career. So, you know, again, thinking about being in materials engineering, for example, and learning how to do computational materials, which is a new area for us in our undergrad and grad program, that involves lots of programming. So different pathways at materials, chemical, other types of engineering degrees, and then even the engineering technology students also do programming.
Yeah, when I was chairing mechanical engineering, I talked to students sometimes who wanted to do double majors in mechanical and aerospace, especially. And, you know, what I'd tell them, it's like, you can do that, but instead I would recommend, if you're a mechanical engineering major, take aerospace courses as your electives and then do a master's in aerospace, because then it takes about the same amount of time as a dual degree, and then you get, you know, both a bachelor's and a master's.
Yeah, and this would be a great time to pitch out that we are starting combined programs, Spartan Accelerated Graduate Education programs, where there should be some number of courses that would double count. So it shortens the time required to get the master's. All right, so we have a question about math GPA. So again, if you're applying as a freshman, your math GPA, the only courses that count are your 10th and 11th grade courses.
And they don't look at, did you take Calc BC as a sophomore versus Algebra 2? They're just looking at the math GPA. So it's not, so they don't actually look at, did you do this higher level math? It's just, what's your math GPA versus your overall GPA. So right now admissions, yes, just your overall GPA, your math GPA, and then there's certain things that can give you a bump, like, are you from Santa Clara County? Or there are various other things as well, the veteran status, you know, things like that can come into play.
Yeah, and I would like to say on mathematics, you know, with the emphasis that we're putting on looking at the grades, you know, again, we didn't have the test scores, and there are some interesting issues around the test scores, and maybe we won't get the test scores back. But I want to say that for engineering, it's important that students are just willing to learn the math. You know, if you didn't do, you know, all A's and all your math courses, that's still okay. we need to have people that are willing to kind of keep going in the math. And then also, it's really important, if you don't get into calculus 1, if you're a freshman, your very first semester, to try to think about how can you get caught up there. Because if you look at the sequence of courses that the engineers take, and also in engineering technology, it's what they call highly scaffolded. It's, you got to start in that one class. Otherwise, if you're behind, you might be behind in other classes. And since we have a community college counselor on the Zoom, a shout out to our community colleges, which is a great way to help get caught up. So you might even be able to take a community college course the summer before you join, and that could be pre-calculus, and then you could take calculus in the fall, or you could think about the winter term or even in the summer term with the community college that's closest to you, to help try to stay on track with respect to that. But if you feel like, oh, I don't love math, I'm not sure if engineering is for me, but you love other parts about engineering, please come and be an engineer. We don't all love math. Maybe Shao loves math. I don't know. I like math, but I never. For me, it was sort of, I was willing to sit and work hard to learn the math that I needed to learn to do the courses. And if you love math, that's great too.
Yeah, if you want to get done in 4 years and you're starting with pre-calculus, it's important to work closely with an advisor to really think about, what courses do I need in the summer and how to arrange everything. It is possible still to get done in 4 years if you don't start with Calc 1 or Calc 2 in your freshman year, but it gets harder. And it's, a lot of students take 5 years. And so if you can't do summer, it's like, hey, I need to work 60 hours a week to pay for college in summer. Well, you can take 5 years, which is perfectly fine thing to do.
Yeah, so on the back end of it, the employers don't seem to care whether you graduated in 4 years or not. And then the other thing about the summer classes, to try to catch up, in your later summers, you're going to want to look for internships. And so we have a great career center, which helps students find internships. We have lots of opportunities for students to interact with speakers from companies, et cetera. And so, trying to think about, if you do need to spend a summer getting caught up on math, or maybe there's another class you need to catch up on, do it earlier in your academic career, so that later on you will hopefully have the flexibility to do an internship. And we do also have students who will take an internship, say the summer before their final year, and then they'll just keep working at their internship during their senior year. So this is really, again, part of why our students transition so easy into the workforce, because a lot of them are already in the workforce by the time they're finished, if not all the way through.
And that's real benefit for being the Bay Area. There are just so many companies, so there are lots and lots of options for internships. Still have to pound the pavement to seek that out, and working with the Career Center, but there are many places where students go.
Yeah, so I'll just call out that both Associate Dean Okamoto and Sue, I think you both went to University Illinois Urbana-Champaign for graduate school, correct?
Yeah.
Yep.
Right, which is a wonderful college town. It has a great bowling alley, and it's in the middle of cornfields in Illinois. And so it's a little difficult in an environment like that. There are benefits of being in a college town like that, like Cal Poly is a great example. It's isolated and it's beautiful, but it's a little difficult to work while you're in school on a technical internship, because the amount of engineering companies that they have there is not zero, but it's not like it is in Silicon Valley.
Yeah, it's more restricted to summers in that case.
Yeah.
Yeah, even with, I didn't have industry internship experience during my PhD even. Yeah, at the end of my PhD, I decided I really need to work in industry to get a taste, right? But being here, many of our students do internship while at school. They get opportunities to. So if you can really juggle schoolwork and internship together, there are really enough opportunities for you.
Yeah, and okay. I'll just go real quick. I just wanted to say something about the difference between being at a Cal Poly or being at a place like San Jose State. So there's two Cal Polys in the CSU system. There's Cal Poly San Luis Obispo and Cal Poly Pomona. Pomona's not as isolated because it's kind of on the edge of the Los Angeles area and the Inland Empire. Beautiful location there as well. But we're a comprehensive campus. And so for me, I've always studied and worked at comprehensive campuses, but I've had friends who've worked at polytechnics, engineering is big on this campus, but we're only 1 in every 5 of the students. And so if you really want to go and sit down and have a coffee at the Starbucks and then end up involved in a conversation at the next table with a bunch of students that are psychology or art majors or are in the music program or are in nursing, it's a little different than it would be at Cal Poly, where every time you turn around, there's an engineer. And they have other majors as well. They have a lot of business majors, and they even have English majors, because my best friend, when I was young, majored in English there. But it's not the same kind of broad flavor of campus that you would get in terms of the students you would interact with, and then also the programming that we have that's extracurricular. So the university runs the Hammer Theater, and if you're an electrical engineer and you want to try to work on theater projects, doing lights, for example, there may be pathways to do that you wouldn't have at a polytechnic. And then we also have other really great programming. We have an Institute for Sports and Society. I think maybe there's another acronym. I may be getting the number of S's wrong. But there's lots of different things like sports sociology and society, lots of programming in the health sciences, et cetera.
I've had some conversations with the Industrial Advisory Board of Mechanical Engineering. That includes VPs of companies like, Lockheed, KLA Tencor, Lam Research. And one thing that they emphasized was that they'd much rather see a student with a little lower GPA, but has experience with things like multiple internships or experience in a multidisciplinary club. Like, for example, let's say they're the design lead for the chassis of the Formula SAE race car that San Jose State has. They really love seeing things like that on a student resume. So definitely, for students who come into engineering, we all strongly recommend they get involved, whether it's on campus with a club like that, or get involved in other ways, like through internships and getting a little bit more experience than just what they get in their courses. Are there any questions about clubs or extracurricular activities and opportunities?
Yeah, there's a question about in the chat about whether AP courses will be given extra point or not. Do you know, Nicole?
I don't know for sure. I think they might use the unweighted GPA, but I'm not sure.
Oh, I think so my daughter again just applied. So I think it was a weighted that I think what she saw was her weighted and unweighted, I think, by the time she submitted, because she was a little surprised at how big the bump was. It was actually pretty big for her. And she didn't take a lot of AP classes, but yeah, so the APs do help. And plus, if you have an opportunity to take some of them, it gives you some experience with the higher workload courses. But again, if you didn't have an opportunity to take a lot of APs, that's okay too. Sometimes people take too many APs, and I wonder, okay, why go to college? But that's just me.
Mine is still working through the application, and I saw the California Promise program. It's a program that will help students finish, freshmen finish in 4 years and a transfer finish in 2 years. You get priority registrations, and yeah, we are still working through that. I don't know. Yeah, sure, you have more on that. Is everyone eligible if they select that?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know that they restrict it necessarily. But in any case, there are lots of really great programs. I think our state, I'm from California. My mother was born here even. Our state has just always supported to the extent that it can. We've had budget cuts up and down over the years, as any parent or our community college counselor would know. But our state really does try to support higher education. So public education, I think, is part of what has made California be such a magical place in terms of just always being on top of whatever the next thing is with respect to our economy. So we're just, when people need to learn specific fields that are really important or that they're really passionate about, we've got opportunities for people to do that. And then when new fields develop, the CSU, I think, is probably the most agile as far as the four-year degree systems in developing programs that meet industry needs. And then our community colleges, shout out to the community colleges, are great for either programs first transfer to four-year or what they call the career technical education, again, responsive to the needs of our economy and what students want. So it's great to be, Californian. You're in the right state.
And our goal is to help students graduate as quickly as they can, and is one of them. So if you're transferring courses in, if you're going to a private school, sometimes they want you to take as many courses at that school as possible. Our goal is a little bit different. We want our students to be able to graduate as soon as they can. And so we look at, if a course is not articulated, we look at, say, hey, does this cover the material that's needed for this particular course so they can be successful in the next class? And so there's, I think, a lot more flexibility with transferring of courses than you might see in some schools as well.
Yeah, some private schools don't even accept AP courses for the general education, which is to me shocking. But again, they feel, the University of Chicago or Harvard, they feel that their courses are somehow better than the AP courses. So, but we consider the AP courses fine.
Yeah, we went on the MIT tour 4 years ago. Yeah. And then I asked that specific question to our tour guide, and she said, no AP courses are counted. Yeah.
And
yeah,
AP,
so we're happy to count them.
Yeah, the engineering programs are all really packed. There's, you've got all your engineering courses and math and physics, and then English. Our grads have to be able to write well and communicate. And so anybody who does come in with AP credit just makes it easier for them to get out in 4 years.
Oh, great question about Google. Yeah, so we already work a lot with Google. So we have Google speakers come regularly. They participate, our students do internships there. We have a lot of alum that were hired recently into Google, and we've been in discussions with them as soon as they started talking about moving their, not moving, but building that ginormous, I think 20,000 person campus. So we're really super excited about it, because then it'll be a lot easier to interact with the people that will be about less than 2 miles from us, maybe a mile and a half.
Yeah, to add to that, sorry, yeah, Nicole, yeah, Google and the Southeast State already started to offer Computer Science Summer Institute extension here in the past few summers. Yeah.
Our engineering technology program has a very close relationship with Cisco in their computer network focus.
Yeah, so I will call out, without naming any specific companies, but companies do analytics on their own employees. And so they're looking for who are the contributors once people are in the workforce. And again, the San Jose State students really shine. And so it's been really nice to see, especially I've been on campus, this is my 5th year. And right about when I was joining was, I think, when the companies were realizing what's important to look for in their future hires. And so it's great for us. We think about companies and they want to recruit from highly selective institutions, but it doesn't really get you the same flavor of an engineer that you would get at a place like San Jose State. And so when they're realizing on the back end that the employees are contributing, they're really doing well in their performance reviews, they're advancing in their careers, and then they realize, oh, well, maybe we need to add San Jose State to our list. And so that's been a real joy for us to see.
Yeah, and in fact, just this semester, to start in the spring, we're working on a trial setup of a directed internship placement program with Texas Instruments. And that's for electrical engineering.
Yeah, and then in addition to the directed ones, we have the ad hoc internship situations where they find the budget to keep the San Jose State student during the academic year because they contributed so much over the summer. Most of our students do work while they go to college. So if that's something that you're looking at as what you need to do to get your way through, you'll be in good company. But that also, I'll circle back to the comment that Associate Dean Okamoto made about clubs, and I want to just ask if people have questions about clubs to go ahead and drop those in the chat. I think people think of us if we're, especially if you're looking at being a commuter student as, I'm going to be in the go home club, which is what one of our alumni called it, where I go to class and then I go home. And maybe it isn't really home. You go to your job or you go to take care of your siblings or whatever your other responsibilities are. But the clubs are a way to gain really important experience interacting with people outside of your classes. And then even people outside of your discipline. Even our Formula Car team, which you would think would be dominated by mechanical engineers, has people from lots of different disciplines, including other colleges like business and psychology, that participate in the team. And that's what gives it a great edge over just being all engineers. And then the other reason is that engineering is one of the more demanding majors. And so it's one of those things where if you work hard, you can get through, but having a club can give you kind of an outlet. And so if you really, just as a general decision-making way of thinking, if there's something that you're really passionate about that isn't engineering, you might want to just try to see if there's a club for that so that you can have that outlet. If you really love chess, you really want to have a chess club. If you really love Harry Potter, we have a Quidditch club. If you really love, anime, or you really want to get more involved in activism, we have clubs where you can do all of those things, which again can help balance out the nights when it feels like, oh my gosh, I've got all of this engineering homework and it's all due Friday.
Plus, San Jose it's a really big campus, and this can be a way to find a home. Make friends that you're hanging out with. You need to go do homework. Well, I'm going to go to the club room and work there, and you're all just going to have some folks around you.
So the question for the 12th grade GPA, are you going to apply as? It's just, if you're applying for fall next year, they do not look at your 12th grade GPA in the admissions process. I'm not sure how it would be if you're applying for spring. They will ask for your transcripts. And so I would say that, once you hit the button and you send your application in, don't just blow off your senior year. Because there are cases, I don't know if San Jose State does it with regularity, but I have seen at least the UCs rescind your admission because they thought you slacked off too much.
So for transfer student admissions, oftentimes people will be admitted conditionally. And they'll say, okay, you're admitted, but you have to finish XYZ courses that you're in right now. And then, so you're admitted conditionally, and then you have to submit a final transcript once those courses are done. I don't think that's typically done for freshmen, but I know it happens for transfer students. And yes, most of our spring admits are transfer students. Sometimes I think we might get a few freshmen, like if they take a gap semester after they finish high school, but it's, mostly transfers for spring. I'll just make a note while we're waiting for more questions. I used to teach at a private school before I came here to San Jose State, and it was a great school. I really enjoyed the students, many things about it. But I prefer teaching at San Jose State, and a lot of it's due to the really diverse student body. It's not just wealthy and upper middle class students, mostly white. There's no majority ethnic group at San Jose State. Students, we've got a lot of immigrants. We have both people who are struggling economically and who are well off. And I think that's why many of our students have been very successful in some of the competitions, because we draw on that diverse body, which brings a diverse skill sets for students. So it makes it kind of exciting place to be, I think. I can check about timeline for admissions. Okay, application deadline for freshmen is November 30. You have to complete the intent to enroll by May 1. I'm not sure when decisions come out. I wonder if
Yeah,
maybe
typically
others-
February. Yeah, it'll be, I think, sometime late February.
Mhm.
Yeah, and as a fun fact, I grew up in San Jose, and so I applied. Again, 10th and 11th grade grades, because by the time the deadline hits, you don't have any 12th grade grades yet. And then I got admitted after I'd been admitted to 2 UCs because they were so impacted that year. And then they wanted to see my 12th grade grades. And so there may be ways where you're trying to do, if you didn't get in and there's a way to do an admission appeal, maybe at that point they would ask for how your grades. So they asked me for my grades, which I then submitted. So I think I got finally admitted late March or something like that. But I chose to go to a UC. But to Associate Dean Okamoto's point, the difference between different types of institutions, it can be significant. And some of the UCs have extremely large class sizes, and we do too for some of our classes. So you might take a large math or physics class, but we really try to have smaller classes within engineering. And so if you take our Engineering 10 class, I think the class sizes are either 22 or 26 students per section, if I'm not mistaken. It's really small. And so we also try to do block scheduling so that you can at least see familiar faces in your lower division classes. There's a lot of different things that we do that really put the focus on high quality undergraduate education.
It's pretty easy to come in to see a professor for office hours compared to at some schools where your professor's main focus may be the research, and it's hard to get in to see that particular individual.
Yeah, I had a professor ask me if I could ask the question that I wanted to ask him in office hours as he was walking to his office because he was very, very busy. That happened actually several times. And we have busy professors too, and we have professors who do research, but I think that the overall culture is definitely very student-centric here.
Yeah, was talking with a student last spring, and he had transferred from Berkeley. And he said one thing that he really appreciated is that he actually got to talk to his professors and talk to advisors, and he could go in and see his professor every week if he needed to for problems, whereas that wasn't the experience that he had before. I definitely recommend visiting schools because you can really get a feel for the difference between them. I think most schools are now open up to have some in-person tours now. But don't try to go for an in-person tour just over Christmas break, because I was actually looking last night for my daughter. We were thinking of going to visit schools over Christmas break to start looking at that process because she's a junior, and most of them are not open then.
Yeah, you want to try to go when the schools are kind of, when it's a regular day for them. Or on, we will have an admitted Spartan Day in the spring, and that's going to be a fun opportunity to come and check us out. That'll be in April before you have to make the decision about when to enroll. Oh, and then we've got reminders. We've got individual program Q&As. And so if you've got program specific questions about electives or about careers, you can go to the Q&As and ask those, and those will be coming up later today. So the link for those is in the chat.
Yeah, you don't need to pay $15,000 to $20,000 for college counseling to apply to San Jose State. Definitely not.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't want to.
Let's say particularly because our admissions is so focused on GPA, you don't even need to provide an essay. So yeah, if your child is applying to CSU, I'd say skip that.
Yeah. So there are public universities that have what they call holistic admissions processes. They have all the factors to consider, and with ours, there's no essay, there's no letter of recommendation. They don't care if you've ever visited before, because there's this issue about how many touch points a student has had that might be weighted into an admissions decision, which actually disadvantages students who aren't able to travel. There is no appointment to apply. There's the CSU Apply webpage, and there are resources available through there if you need to contact somebody because you have questions. Yeah, and then the community colleges do have workshops with the transfer counselors that work with us directly. Thank you, Vicki. And then if you're in a California high school, hopefully your high school counselors are familiar enough if you've got questions there. So my daughter goes to a school that's in the San Jose Unified District, and she's been back and forth about questions with the CSU Common App that I couldn't answer. So and she was able to get her questions resolved.
There's a live chat on the admissions website. So if you pop in there, if any questions, they should be able to, if they don't have the answer right there, they can direct you to the right place to go.
Yeah, I think compared to some of the other hoops that other admissions, that other universities and even the Common App makes you jump through, it's actually kind of refreshing in a way, the simplicity of ours. It is frustrating though, because it does boil everything down to your GPA. And I'll acknowledge that. And I wish we could have some other way to incorporate other factors into the admissions decision. But it is probably the most transparent process out there. So again, you can look up to see what the eligibility index was for the previous semester to get a sense of whether you'll be admitted into the program you want, get a sense to explore other programs. And as we've said a few times, I just would encourage folks to be flexible. If there's a major that says engineering in it and you're not really sure what it is, feel free to look it up. You can look at the department websites. You can just look to see, what exactly is this aerospace engineering, or what does materials engineer do? There's a lot of really great programs out there to get a degree in engineering. And then as folks have mentioned, once you have that degree, you could go on and get a degree in something else. We're working on a program where you can get an interdisciplinary engineering degree and do a business chunk, or do a focus on innovation and law, which would be a great preparation for law school, for example. So, there's engineering is just a different approach to learning critical thinking. So if you go and you major in the liberal arts, you learn critical thinking skills, and we learn those as well. And you can apply it to any job you take after, whether it's an engineering job or law school or a non-engineering job or starting a company, all of that.
There's a question in the chat about changing major from Moash. It depends on what major you're trying to get into. So again, coming from my background in mechanical, it's one of the more impacted majors. You need to have a B in your average in your major courses to transfer in, and have to be done with Calc 1, Calc 2, and the first physics. But if you're transferring into a less impacted major, that might have just a C average to get in. So it really is very major specific as to how hard it is to change major once you're accepted into the university.
Okay, so again, you can go to the Impaction criteria, which I posted earlier for the question about somebody's GPA, and you can see let me see if I can find that up there, the previous admissions criteria on a program specific basis.
And if someone struggles in high school and just barely squeaks in getting into a non-impacted major at San Jose State, but is doing well at San Jose State, for change of major process, we don't care about high school. We care about how well you're doing in your courses now once you've been accepted. And sometimes students will really change. They may have, decide, hey, I'm really going to start focusing on studying now, and their GPA will really change. And so there are opportunities to make changes.
Yeah, and I will also say, we want everybody to make the choices that's best for them, or if you're a parent on the call, to make the choice that's best for your child, to work with your child on what they want to do. again, it may be the better thing to for students who are maybe feel like they're not reaching their full potential now, to just go to a community college. We have plenty of examples of that where the students maybe didn't get into the program they wanted to for their undergrad, and they chose to do the community college. And if you go to a community college that has great support and a good track record of placing students into engineering four-year programs, then they do fine when they get there. And then we have plenty of students who went to community college because the cost of the tuition was too much. There's one of my favorite students, his name is Hubert, and he's a mechanical engineering graduate, and he wanted to go to De Anza for his community college because it's got a great track record in the Bay Area. He took the bus something like 3 hours, 3 hours each way, because it was two buses and he had to change. Every day he would go to De Anza, and then luckily San Jose State was only one bus line away from his house, which was up the East Bay somewhere. And he's a wonderful engineer. He's working now on a robotic startup, and he had a long stretch at Intuitive Surgical. So community college is, maybe the best place initially, but we're happy to take you when you get here if you're a transfer.
Yeah, I had a student, I was recently invited to her PhD defense at Stanford. She had full ride Stanford. She went to community college for 2 years, transferred to San Jose State. She had custody of her sister while she's at San Jose State. So a lot of family things going on, and then full ride through PhD Stanford. And so it's really great to see stories like that.
Mm-hmm. All right, any last questions? Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you all for joining us.
Yep. We hope to see you or your child or both of you sometime soon in person, spring, Admitted Spartan Day.
And definitely check out the major specific programs that are starting, well, some of them starting now.
All right, bye everybody.